All right, today we're going to dive into a theological thought experiment that is so challenging, it really pushes right at the very foundations of Christian belief. It's a paradox that forces us to ask one huge, profound question.
And there it is. That's the core paradox. Get this. What if the foundational event of Christianity, the resurrection, is totally true, but the person it happened to wasn't the Messiah? It sounds like a complete contradiction, right? But exploring it actually reveals a ton about the very structure of the faith.
So to start, let's just look at this from a purely theoretical point of view. Could the faith actually survive something like this? I mean, is there a logical path forward if the resurrection is true, but the whole messiahship thing isn't?
Okay, to even begin to understand the argument, we have to start right here. In Christian theology, the resurrection isn't just another miracle. It's seen as God's ultimate seal of approval on everything Jesus said and did. Literally everything else is built on top of this one event. It is the absolute cornerstone.
And this is where the theoretical solution comes in. The whole idea is that faith could just pivot. It could shift its focus. So instead of the title Messiah being the most important thing, the actual event of the resurrection would take center stage.
So how would that even work? Well, the logic kind of goes like this. The resurrection is still God's big confirmation. That divine act validates Jesus' message, whether you call him the Messiah or not. In this view, Jesus becomes the risen one who reveals God, a totally new category that stands on its own, completely separate from, say, the Jewish expectation of a political Messiah. So in theory, the faith could totally survive just by letting go of that one specific title.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? Theology doesn't exist in a neat little bubble. In practice, this tidy theory runs headfirst into a very, very messy reality.
Now, what I love about this is how clearly it lays out the central tension. The theory says, hey, faith can rest on the resurrection all by itself. But the reality, for 2,000 years of tradition, is that the resurrection has always been presented as the ultimate proof that Jesus is the Messiah. See? The two ideas are completely tangled together.
So you can't just snip these two ideas apart. It's not some small adjustment. Pulling them apart introduces this massive contradiction that kind of destabilizes 2 millennia of the faith's historical claims. And that leads to one absolutely unavoidable question.
And this is the critical question, isn't it? If God performed this incredible, ultimate act, raising someone from the dead, but that person wasn't the long-promised Messiah, then why? What's the point? It almost suggests that God confirmed a false claimant, which, throws the meaning of the whole event into question.
Okay, so if we accept that this contradiction is real, where does that road lead? Let's explore 3 possible scenarios that could logically follow from this whole crisis.
Let's walk through these. First, you have what we could call the brought-in scenario. Jesus rose, sure, but he wasn't the Messiah in that traditional sense. So faith survives by saying he's something even greater, a universal figure like the Son of Man. Second, the collapse scenario. This one is, well, it's pretty devastating. If he wasn't the Messiah, maybe he didn't rise either. And if that's the case, the entire faith just loses its foundation. Poof. And third, the to-be-continued scenario, which is a really wild idea. Jesus rose, but he's not the final act. Another Messiah is still to come. This means salvation history isn't over, which completely upends traditional Christian belief as we know it.
So as you can see, none of these scenarios leave the faith looking the same. The ultimate implication of this whole thought experiment is that the belief system would have to be completely, utterly transformed.
The source material we're looking at really puts it perfectly. It's not just that one little detail changes. The entire structure of the Christian faith as we have always understood it would be called into question. It's a fundamental challenge.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Detaching the resurrection from the messiahship isn't like changing one ingredient in a recipe. No, it's like having to invent a whole new type of food. It would force a complete rewrite of the faith's most basic core beliefs.
Because suddenly all the big questions are right back on the table. Who is Jesus really? Why did God raise him? And what was the whole point of his mission? Every single core belief would need a brand new answer.
And that leaves us with this final, really challenging question that sits at the very heart of this paradox. At what point does a religion that re-engineers its most central ideas stop being the same religion? How much can a belief change before it becomes something else entirely?